Assalamu alaikum. On behalf of Ahsan Academy, let me welcome you to a presentation on general organization of the abdomen. Actually, in this part, this is the second part of organization of the abdominal wall. In this part, I will consider the muscle that forms the abdominal wall. Anatomy of each muscle will be discussed and the functions of the muscles will be covered here in this part along with the clinical correlation at every part. You can see this is the photograph of the muscles viewed from the anterior aspects. If we have a section here, we will observe the composition of the wall diagrammatically. You see this anterior part, one straight muscle running in vertical direction. This is rectus abdominis muscle, and at the lower part there is a small pyramidalis muscle. So these two are considered as the muscle of the anterior part of the abdominal wall. You see this is the lateral part and it extends anterolaterally. So this is actually known as anterolateral muscles, and they are placed in three layers. These are named as the external, internal, and transversus abdominis. So this is the vertebra, lumbar vertebra. The lumbar vertebra makes the vertebral column and it is the skeletal component of the posterior wall. By the side and behind there are muscles. This side muscles are considered as the muscles of the posterior wall of the abdomen. These anterolateral muscles makes flattened tendon which is known as aponeurosis anteriorly that covers the rectus abdominis muscle and finally fuses in the midline, forming a very tough band. This is known as linea alba, extending from the xiphoid process to pubic symphysis. This strong band is formed by all the aponeurosis of these three anterolateral muscles that covers the rectus abdominis muscle and become fused in the midline. The posterior muscles, if you see, these paravertebral muscles are actually the forming the posterior wall of the abdomen, and this posterior paravertebral muscle, this is actually continuous throughout the length. So they are considered as the back muscles as a whole, and these muscles are considered let us see the anterior muscle. This is rectus abdominis muscle extending throughout the length and a very small pyramid shaped muscle. So this is known as pyramidalis muscle. You can see this is rectus abdominis muscle. If we enlarge this area, we will observe that this is the section of the rectus abdominis muscle and rectus abdominis muscle. These are the three anterolateral muscles making aponeurosis in the anterior part that splits and makes a cover sheath of the rectus abdominis and finally fuse in the midline. So this is known as rectus sheath. Anterolateral muscles include the three layers. This is external oblique muscle. You can see this one is the external oblique. This two marked area, this is the internal oblique muscle, and inside this is the transversus abdominis muscle. So these three muscles are considered as the anterolateral muscles of the abdomen. The posterior wall, you see, we'll discuss these three muscles here. This one is the psoas major muscle. On it there is a small muscle. Often it is considered as the part of the psoas major, but it is sometimes labeled as psoas minor muscle. See, this is the iliacus muscle, and above the iliac crest, this is the quadratus lumborum. So these three will be considered as the posterior muscles of the posterior abdominal wall. You see, this one is the diaphragm, and below this one is the pelvic diaphragm. You can see this is the quadratus lumborum. splitted here. After removal, you can see from the posterior part, this is the psoas major muscle. So let us start with the anterolateral muscles of the abdominal wall. So three muscles are there: external oblique, internal oblique, and transversus abdominis. This one is the external oblique. The fibers are directed anterior-inferiorly. This one is the internal oblique, and fibers are directed opposite to that direction. And this third muscle, the fibers are directed transversely. So this is named on the fibers direction, and this is actually because of this counter directions of the muscle. They are very strong performer as in formation of the wall. Let us discuss the attachment of each of this one, and you can see this is the external oblique muscle, arises above and posteriorly from the ribs. Lower 8 ribs gives separate sleeves. These are the sleeve from each ribs, and lower 8 means it starts from the 5th to 12. This 8 sleeves are attached to the ribs, outer part of the ribs. They are intermingled with between the serratus anterior muscle. So this is called, it's like digit, so interdigitating with this serratus sleeves. This muscle arises from this outer surface of the ribs. The fiber directs anterior. You can see these fibers are coming from this. This is the serratus anterior muscle, and these are the digitations from ribs, is passing anterior-inferiorly, and this become aponeurosis here at the lateral border of this rectus abdominis muscle, and here at the level of the anterior superior leg spine, this become aponeurosis. It's a flattened tendon, and this is inserted, coming to the median plane, inserted into the xiphoid process. Then it fuses with the other side to form the linea alba around the umbilicus. It goes down up to the symphysis pubis. So this total area is linea alba. It is the fusion, no bony attachment. Inferiorly, this attached to the pubic crest. You can see this is the pubic crest. The lateral one is the pubic tubercle. So this pubic crest and tubercle is area for the attachment. Then the fibers are attached to the anterior superior iliac spine and this outer polyp of the iliac crest anterior to third. So between this anterior superior iliac spine and pubic tubercle, this part is free. So this is the free margin. You can see the free margin. So insertion starts from here, makes linea alba, attached to the pubic symphysis. This is the pubic crest and pubic tubercle. Then no attachment, border free. Then attached to the anterior superior iliac spine and outer lip of the iliac crest of the anterior to third. So the muscle spreads from above and posterior, runs medially, starts attachment from the xiphoid process to the iliac crest. In between anterior superior iliac spine and pubic tubercle, this part is the free margin. This is the peculiarity of this muscle. Now, this free part is thickened and enrolled. You see, this is enrolled. Attached here in the pubic crest and the pubic tubercle, anterior superior iliac spine. So between this is very thick and enrolled, making a drain, a groove, the lower part. So this groove gives area to the attachment of the other muscles, and this free part forms floor of a canal. That's why this area is very important, and this is known as inguinal ligament. So inguinal ligament is an aponeurosis that's thickened and enrolled and extends between anterior superior iliac spine and the pubic tubercle. This is the anterior superior iliac spine, and I'm showing this is the pubic tubercle. So this is thickened, curved, the free posterior is enrolled. You can see this area. You see this medial end with some curved fiber anchored into the pectinate line. This is pubic bone and a very sharp line is there. This is inserted into or anchor-like insertion of the ligament and makes a free lateral border. Actually, this is the medial margin of the femoral ring. With the lower limb, we will study the femoral ring and we'll find that this is the medial part of the inguinal ligament, that's also known as lacunar ligament, and this is forming here in a triangular shape and helps in the tight insertion or tight attachment of the medial part of the inguinal ligament. This free margin is the medial margin of the femoral triangle, femoral ring. You see, this is the aponeurosis of the external oblique muscle. If you go lower part and medial, there is an opening. There is deficiency of the aponeurosis. So this opening is triangular in shape and it is known as superficial inguinal ring. So this is the pubic tubercle. Superficial inguinal ring is situated above and in the medial part. So if we can feel the pubic tubercle, just above the pubic tubercle, we can place our finger inside even this area. This is superficial inguinal ring. It's a very, very clinically important area. This is definitely an weak point, but has some natural support from the posterior aspects. That we will try to understand. So superficial inguinal ring is a deficit area it's a opening, it's a triangular opening in the external oblique aponeurosis, which is just above and medial to the pubic tubercle. Here is the pubic crest and this is the pubic tubercle. This is superficial inguinal ring. Through this actually spermatic cord comes down to the scrotum in case of male, and female another band round ligament of the truss passes through here. So you can see this is the cut edge of inguinal ligament, pubic crest and pubic tubercle. Here you can see the pectinate line. So already we have discussed about the lacunar ligament. That is the curved lacunar ligament that actually makes a strong attachment of the medial part of the inguinal ligament. So this is the lacunar ligament which remain attached starting from the pubic tubercle, pectinate line. It's a triangular band, and this is actually boundary of the femoral ring. This is the femur, means thigh. So with the thigh we'll get it again. This extra band that continues over the line is the pectinate ligament. Actually, lacunar ligament continues as a thick band over this line, pectinate line, and this is known pectineal ligament. So inguinal ligament is attached laterally to the anterosuperior spine. This is a very thick lower margin of lower part of the external oblique aponeurosis. It's enrolled, makes a drain-like, groove-like. Medially, this gives some fibers inserted into pubic tubercle and pectinate line. It continues as the pectinate ligament over the line. So all this medial arrangement is a very strong insertion of this inguinal ligament to this pubic bone. So second muscle is the internal oblique muscle. You see, this is the internal oblique muscle, external oblique cut here. Here you can see the diagrammatic. You see from the back, it's a very deep, thick fascia. This is known as thoracolumbar fascia, covers the posterior part. So from lateral to this starts the internal oblique muscle. So this internal oblique muscle is attached to this fascia, thoracolumbar fascia. Then go down. This is the iliac crest. So anterior 2/3 of the iliac crest is the middle part of the iliac crest, give area for the attachment, because outer part for external oblique muscle. Then you see this inguinal ligament remains here, which is groove. So this internal oblique muscle continues attachment over this ligament. So this ligament lateral to third gives area for the attachment of internal oblique. So this area, this groove is covered, and the anterior to third remains as the groove, making floor of a canal. So its attachment here, you see origin is to say thoracolumbar fascia, anterior to third of the iliac crest, lateral to third of the inguinal ligament. So this is the area the internal oblique muscle is attached. Now fibers going up, fibers are running up and forward. It's becoming aponeurosis in the same part where we have observed for the external oblique muscle. And you see this muscles, the aponeurosis, is attached in the same way we have observed for the external oblique muscle. So it is inserted to the ribs, then going to the costal cartilages, then you have seen this is the xiphoid process, then we got the linea alba, and linea alba is going to the pubic crest and pubic tubercle. So this area is the symphysis pubis. So total attachment to the lower three ribs and the costal cartilages, then going to the xiphoid process, linea alba and symphysis pubis. So this area is giving insertion. Fibers are perpendicular to the external oblique muscle. So they are when the two contracts, there will be a forceful, tough barrier of the wall. Internal oblique muscle, here you have seen attached thoracolumbar fascia, iliac crest, then lateral two-third of the inguinal ligament. And here you have seen the insertion is completed in the symphysis pubis. So the area between this area up to this area is free. So these free fibers arches over this canal, this groove, forming the roof, and going to the medial, fuses with the muscle deep to it and makes one thick tendon. This is conjoint tendon. So internal oblique muscle fills the lateral two-third of the inguinal ligament, the groove, and makes an arch. So it is passing over the roof, and a canal is there over the medial one-third of the inguinal ligament. The roof is formed by the arched fiber of the internal oblique muscle. Now through this spermatoid cord runs with, in case of the male, you can see some fibers, muscle fibers runs with this one. So this spermatic cord passes through it. Some fibers from the internal oblique muscle fuses with this one. Major fiber arches over this, fuses with the transversus abdominis to make the conjoint tendon, and this is inserted into the pubic crest and the pectinate line. So this attachment of this internal oblique is not alone. Up to the symphysis pubis, this separately insert with the linea alba, with the external oblique muscle, but here it fuses with the transversus abdominis, lies behind the superficial inguinal ring. This is the superficial inguinal. Behind this, these two muscle fuses and inserted into the pubic crest. You see, we have said earlier the pubic just above and medial to the pubic tubercle, the superficial inguinal ring lies. So medial to the pubic tubercle is the pubic crest. So this muscle is attached to the pubic crest, pubic tubercle and pectinate line. So total superficial inguinal ring is covered from the back by the conjoint tendon. we have discussed that while arching over the inguinal ligament, some fibers join spermatic cord. So this is known as, these muscles are called the cremasteric muscles. So this runs with the spermatic cord in case of male and round ligament of the uterus in case of female. So these cremasteric muscles are continuous with the spermatic cord, and this is nothing but some fibers originating from the internal oblique muscle. Transversus abdominis. You can see these transversely placed muscles. So it arises from above, posterior, and below. So above, it arises from the lower 6 costal cartilages. Then it will get the lumbar fascia, then iliac crest, lateral, anterior 2/3 of the iliac crest. So the origin is from the costal cartilage, fascia, and iliac crest. The fibers all running medially. This also taking origin from the 1/3 region. So it is internal to the internal oblique, and half of the area of the internal oblique is covered by this transversus abdomen. So it is arising from the costal cartilage, fascia, iliac crest, inguinal ligament, lateral 1/3 only. So all these fibers runs towards the midline. It's going to lamina semilunaris. Again, it is forming take part in the formation of the rectus sheath. So it is inserted naturally. You can imagine it is going to the xiphoid process, then going to the lineal elbow formation, and below it is going to the symphysis pubis. Lateral to the symphysis pubis, it is forming conjoint tendon with the internal oblique muscle. So these fibers are also arching over the inguinal ligament. So that canal, the roof is formed by the arch fiber of internal oblique as well as transversus abdominis. This is the inguinal canal. So inguinal canal, floor is formed by this, roof is formed by this. Two boundaries we got. We will discuss in detail of the inguinal ligament. And it is forming the conjoint tendon. Already we have discussed how conjoint tendon is formed. Let us see again, because this is a very strong support to the superficial inguinal ring. You can see this is the superficial inguinal ring. It's an opening in the external oblique aponeurosis. Now this is internal oblique muscle arching over the canal. Transversus abdominis is attached to the relatively lateral part, so coming from the lateral side, arching over, and these two tendons fuse together, two aponeuroses actually fuse together here. So this is going to the pubic tubercle and pubic crest, pectinate line laterally. So all this area, total area is from the back is covered by the conjoint tendon. So how the conjoint tendon is formed? It is formed by these lower fibers of this aponeurosis, two aponeuroses, and attached to the lower part. This is the pubic crest, pubic tubercle, pectinate line up to the linea alba. You can see this is the symphysis pubis area, pubic crest, pubic tubercle, pectinate line. So all this giving attachment to this. So superficial inguinal ring from the back is supported by this strong. So any organ, any viscera try to push through this, try to herniate through this, cannot, because of this strong support from the back. Anterior fiber, you can see this is the rectus abdominis muscle and a small pyramidalis muscle. You can see here this is the rectus abdominis, and so this is the rectus abdominis muscle, and the aponeurosis going to the linea alba, it's placed to enclose this rectus muscle. It is called the rectus sheath. Now let us see the attachment of the rectus abdominis muscle is usually expressed from the below, because we know that the definition of origin says that muscle pulls towards the origin. So it is the rib who are pulled downwards. So this arises from the back, inferior. So the origin here, you can see this is the symphysis pubis, and this area is the pubic crest. The lateral one is the pubic tubercle. So you know the anatomy of this area. So this rectus abdominis muscle arises from the below, from pubic crest and pubic tubercle, goes up. Here the second part, it is a small portion from the medial side. It fuses with the other side, rectus abdominis muscle of the other side, and finally become continuous with a very strong anterior ligament of the pubic symphysis. Here, this is transversely, the body of the pubic bone is connected together by a ligament, and this rectus abdominis muscle, the medial part, fuses with the medial part of the opposite side and become continuous with this ligament. So this strong attachment, from this the parallel fibers go up, and these fibers are inserted into the ribs to the 5 to 7 costal cartilages of the rib. So up to 7, you know that this is attached to this diphisternal junction. Then 6th and 5th gives attachment to this rectus abdominis muscle. This rectus abdominis muscle is, the fibers are not continuous, it's interrupted. This is intersected by a non-muscular part. So these fibers are broken into smaller unit, and it is interrupted by a tendinous part. This is known as tendinous intersection of rectus abdominis muscle. You can see these are the tendinous intersection. So their position is relatively fixed. This is the fiber, this band of fibers that partly covers the whole thickness. It is not covering the whole thickness of the abdomen. It is fixed one is observed along at the level of the umbilicus, another at the level of the xiphoid process, tip of the xiphoid process, and in between these two is the another one. So 3 are there which are fixed. Almost everybody has this. A 4th one may be present in between umbilicus and symphysis here in this plane. This may be absent. The peculiarity of this tendinous intersection is they are usually extends in the anterior part, and anterior half is usually covered. It is not present throughout the thickness of the rectus abdominis. It fuses with the anterior rectus sheath. The posterior rectus sheath is free, and this increases the force of contraction. How? We know that the principles of contraction of the muscle says that the force of contraction is directly proportional to the number of the muscle fiber. So you see these muscle fibers are interrupted. So here the total length may have 1, 2, 3, 4, even 5 fibers throughout the length. So the total number may increase several times. So force of contraction increases, making this rectus muscle a very strong anterior wall. The figure showing on the left side, these are the 3 muscles we'll be discussing in this area. This is the psoas major muscle, this one is the quadratus lumborum, and this one is the iliacus muscle. So all these 3 muscles are forming the posterior abdominal wall. Other muscles are actually muscles considered as the muscles of the back. So here you can see the skeleton of the posterior abdominal wall. So this quadratus lumborum you can see here, and the psoas major is cut here. Here you can see the psoas major, and this one is the iliacus. So you can see this muscle is arising from the lower part of the rib. So origin is from the medial half of the inferior border of the 12th rib and tip of the lumbar vertebra. You can see the lumbar transverse process. All tips gives area for the attachment of this quadratus lumborum. So these are the tips of transverse of lumbar vertebra, and this is inserted into a ligament that runs from the ilium to the fifth lumbar transverse process. This is known as iliolumbar ligament. So this muscle fuses with the iliolumbar uh, ligament and the inner lip of the iliac crest, posterior segment. So this is the area where this quadratus lumborum remains attached. The second muscle, this is the psoas major muscle. Psoas major is relatively clinically important. We'll discuss that inshallah. This is attached to the transverse process of all lumbar vertebra and the bodies of these are the transverse process. You can see it is slip by slip, it is attached, and it is also remaining attached to the lower and subsequent upper part of the next vertebra starting from the 12th, this area, but the body is the middle part is free. So this is attached to the lower part of the body, intervertebral disc, and upper part the next body starting from the 12th lumbar to 5th lumbar. They are making an arch over the mid part of the body through which the lumbar artery passes. So this is actually the proximal attachment or origin of the psoas major muscle. This descends to the thigh, medial side of the thigh. You see this is the inguinal ligament. This runs deep to the inguinal ligament and finally inserted along with the iliacus tendon into the lesser trochanter of the femur. So this is starting from the lumbar region, crossing the iliac fossa, run deep to the inguinal ligament, and finally inserted into the lesser trochanter. This is iliacus major. This is the iliac fossa. You can see this iliac fossa, major upper part, about 2/3 of the area gives attachment of the iliacus muscle. Now it descends with the psoas major muscle deep to the inguinal ligament, fuses with the tendon, and finally inserted into the lesser trochanter of the femur. So attachment of these three muscles is clear from these photographs and discussion. Now inside the wall, you see, if you see from the abdominal cavity, this is the anterior wall, and this is covered by the peritoneum on covering, a fat you can see. So if you remove the peritoneum, then we'll get the wall, and this wall from inside, the muscles are covered by a very tough, dense connective tissue sheet. This is known as fascia. This layer of fascia extends all over the muscles. So this is named as per the area, like it is covering the diaphragm. So this is diaphragmatic fascia. It is covering the transversus abdominis. So this is fascia transversalis I am showing here. It covering the iliacus muscle. So it is fascia iliacus. You see it is over the psoas major. So it is called the psoas fascia. So the area is named as per the muscle it is covering, as per the muscle deep to which this fascia remains. It has some clinical significance. Let us see that. You see this fascia covering the psoas major. So that fascia will cover this vertebral column, and you see the fascia will continue with the tendon into the front of the thigh. So what happens, this vertebra if involved and any fluid or pus is accumulated here, that will not accumulate inside the posterior abdominal wall. Because of the gravity, this will follow downward course under the cover of the psoas fascia. This is psoas fascia, and this psoas fascia passes under the deep to this inguinal ligament. So this will pass, the collection will pass into the front of the thigh, and below this inguinal ligament it will make the swelling. So this can be confused with any swelling of the front of the thigh. Actually, it is, the source is by the side of the vertebra, or even tuberculosis of the vertebra may make some cool abscess, and this may pass and may be expressive in front of the thigh. So any swelling in front of the thigh, that should be investigated where the primary source is from here or not. This is known as psoas abscess. Now, if you see from the back, this is latissimus dorsi, which is the back muscle, and you can see this one, external oblique muscle, and this is iliac crest. So a triangular area lies here which is having thinner wall. Latissimus dorsi cover is not there, external oblique is not there, iliac crest is this. So this triangular area is relatively weaker area, and an older age, the organ may push through it. This is possibility of hernia is there. This is known as lumbar hernia. So the lumbar triangle is bounded supramedially by the latissimus dorsi, supralaterally by the external oblique, and iliac crest is the base. Thank you very much for remaining with this presentation.